The podcasts are flying again. The podcasts are flying again. The podcasts are flying again.
This is Watchers on the Couch. Well done. This is the Watchers on the Couch. We are covering Castle Rock. We are so far into the season that we only have one left.
It better be a 2-hour episode.
This one?
No. Episode 10.
Next
That's
week.
all I'm saying. It's better be 2 hours.
Well, you heard your intro from my podcast co-host. Introduce yourself.
I am Debbie. And if you don't know that by now, I am Debbie.
And if you don't know this by now, I am Chris. I don't know why we're repeating that.
It didn't flow as well.
You repeated the intro, so you might as well repeat this too.
Dramatic reading.
Yeah, you're so good at it.
I know.
We're about to cover episode 9, entitled Who Else But Henry Deaver? I guess they went simple with this one.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea what we were in for on this.
I thought we were going to learn about Henry Deaver.
I thought we were going to dig more into who he is, and technically we did, in a way. Not the way that we thought.
Not the Henry I thought.
This episode is crazy, nutso, amazing, awesome.
I loved it.
I loved it too, but first, before we get into the episode breakdown, we have to talk about some other stuff.
Well, first off, let's talk about how we're in the basement.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay, so this episode might sound a little different, maybe a little more echoey. It doesn't really seem like it, but
there's enough shit down here. I don't think echo too much.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of random stuff around. We're not going to get into that. But there is tree trimming going on upstairs in our normal kitchen of terrors or whatever we called it.
Not in the kitchen per se.
We're in the basement.
Yeah.
And that actually fits for this episode because a lot of stuff goes on in a basement. There's a cage in a basement.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, let's get into the extra stuff, though. Shall we?
We shall.
Remember last week how we talked about how I should just go on Twitter and ask Mark Bernardin a question?
I do.
Because we were talking about the paintings and whether or not we thought they were, a special effect or CG or they were
real
hand-painted.
Yeah.
He replied to me within like an hour.
That is amazing.
And he said, I asked him that question, and he said, I honestly have no idea. But if I were to guess, the close-up shots, all the paintings that were shown super close up were hand-painted, and then all the other ones were most likely CG.
So if that's true, that's still a lot of hand painting.
Exactly, because a lot of them got close-up shots.
Yeah.
So he may be right, he may not be right.
But kudos to him for responding so quickly.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like he cares.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to go and ask him a question, just go to @Mark Bernardin, and you spell Mark with a C. And if you get to Mark B, it should just come right up. But
no.
I think this counts as an interruption. Cats love walking on pianos and keyboards for some reason. You ever notice that? Oh, he just plopped.
He fell.
Yeah, so if you want to ask him a question, go ahead and do that. I feel like he's a good place to go to for random Castle Rock questions. And I started it by saying, a Castle Rock question for you.
And it was a good question.
Yeah, I mean, you thought of it. So
I like how he answered it, and he said when Andre was, or he mentioned Andre, because
he knows
friends.
the actor's name. Yeah. So there's that. That coffee's nice and hot, by the way.
Good.
Let's see. Let's go to some book thoughts I had. Okay, so I finished reading Needful Things this week.
And
I was speed reading over my extra vacation day weekend. enough to where my eyes were like tired from reading all day. We were actually at a family get together, Lindsay's family get together, and there was a bunch of kids running around. I'm trying to like zone into the book and not hear the child screaming.
So you were engaging.
Oh yeah, big time. That's kind of my style, to not engage.
I'm gonna go find this corner.
Yeah, I'm gonna go sit on the couch. You guys just do your thing around, and I'll be here
to eat the food.
Oh yeah, exactly. We had barbecue and stuff. That's way off topic. Okay, so needful things. Alan has a memory of his grandma saying the devil's voice is sweet to hear. This is almost an exact kind of pull from the show.
Yeah.
So I felt like that was I should mention
that. Random
that.
thing grandma says too.
Exactly. Well, it's way out of context. I wish I could tell you exactly what the conversation was, but Alan is kind of chasing around this demonish character, and the demonish character that is the antagonist in Evil Things is kind of this like shop owner that he basically tricks the entire town into thinking other people in the town are out to get them. Mm-hmm. So it starts pretty much a giant war in Castle Rock of people against each other.
Paranoia.
Yeah, destroys the town. Which brings me to my next point, is that the people on the show that we're watching seem to have no memory and never mentioned that the town was pretty much like wholly, like the entire downtown area practically is destroyed in this battle between people in the town. And nobody ever mentions any of that. It also happened in 1991.
So it wasn't that long ago.
Well, and it's the same year that all this stuff is happening.
God.
So it's like, how the hell is their memory that selective? I guess maybe,
Henry Deaver really fucked up their world when he went missing.
Maybe it would just be too much to explain, Like
I'm sure Jackie remembers.
Yeah, well, if they do mention something, I would like people to correct us, but we've been watching 9 hours of this episode so far, so it's like, or this show so far, so it's kind of hard to remember every single thing that was mentioned.
Yeah.
But, so yeah, there's more evidence that the entire show is sort of like an alternate reality or a narrative by a character or a dream or Molly stuff. So this is all before I saw episode 9, obviously. Mm-hmm. But because their memory is all gone or it's not even the same universe or whatever. Yeah. That would be the only way I could explain that none of the characters have mentioned that almost the entire town was destroyed.
Yeah, I mean, it could be like
in 91, no
with
less.
It, where the adults don't remember anything.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
So, I mean, that does happen in
his
universe.
Into it, yeah. Oh, boy.
Yeah, Kinsley, hi.
Oh, Kinsley's like, I'm not going to put up with Venom taking this competition.
He is not having it.
There was some criticism online of the episode 8 scene where Wendell is getting off the bus, right? Mm-hmm. That's his son's name. Mm-hmm. It says Jerusalem's Lot.
Yes.
Is like 20 miles away or something, 24 or something like that. It's technically in all the books never that close.
Oh, really?
To Castle Rock. So, I did see some
for their purposes. They can't be having the kid run.
Oh, totally. Especially if he's getting off the bus and he has to walk or whatever, or hitchhike. Yeah. Like, he's got to be kind of close.
I'm surprised they didn't make it 5 miles
They
away.
just took a little liberty. It's not that big a deal. People are just, you know how it is online. People are nitpicky.
It's still a trek.
Yeah. But people are nitpicky about stuff, especially like...
Well, I still want to know how the fuck that RV got in the woods.
Well,
that should be our next question for Mark Bernard. Because he did that episode, right?
He did do that episode.
He would know.
Why have we not asked him about the RV already?
And you know what? All he has to do is give some kind of Spielberg explanation like he did with Jurassic Park where there was no cliff and then there was a cliff. Mm-hmm. And he just said he wanted there to be a cliff.
Right.
So, if he just says, I wanted the RV to be in the middle of the woods, I would accept that.
Yeah, me too. And he doesn't owe us an explanation in the first place, but yeah. I would still ask him about the RV because it's really, it's hard to explain away.
Because then Molly got there super quick.
It's So let's go to the listener comments, shall we?
We shall.
We shall. Posted yesterday, recording tomorrow. Chime in about episode 8 here in the comments. We need your theories and thoughts. When I checked back on it after sleeping all day and getting ready to get up and go to work and kind of check in, gather a couple notes, people contributing. 11 people had looked at it, 0 had commented. So, you guys are really slacking.
Jerks.
Then I posted very passive-aggressively, or not. It's okay, guys. We can handle it.
Yeah, we don't need them.
Well, listen, don't get carried away. I like them participating.
I know. Well, you got to make them feel bad.
And I did. Very passive-aggressively. Amanda then replied. This is where I started getting replies because I posted that. Amanda said, I still haven't watched it.
Get on the ball,
I said,
man.
well, you had a week. I mean, how is it my fault?
It's not.
Then Albert said, like I said. So he's also being very
passive-aggressive?
Yeah, very passive. Like I said, the bird hitting the bus window and Wendell's subsequent pain are heavily reminiscent of the Dark Half. I had seen his comment earlier in the week, so I wasn't including him in this, I need your comments, because he had already chipped in. And that's definitely true, because we had the whole Sparrow stuff going on in the Dark Half, where we got the intro quote from, sort of. I adapted it, and then you adapted it further.
The podcasts are fun. I got it now.
Yeah, I agree with Albert on that one. Amanda then replied, I will watch tomorrow. So she's probably going to watch 2 today. We'll see how that goes. And then Corey says that he wished they used the Jackie character more. She may be his favorite, and that hopefully they'll expand her in future seasons.
That, I agree with that. I feel like they missed out on an opportunity with her. But maybe...
Well, she did have that...
She'll have her own story next season.
She did have that amazing moment in last episode, which he's kind of referring to here, is like... She got pulled in further than she thought she might. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, she always wanted to be a part of this...
The crazy.
The aura of the town, the lore, all, like you said, the crazy. She got more than she bargained for. She was almost murdered by the couple, and then she fucking fulfilled her destiny.
Yeah.
Smashed a dude in the head with an axe.
So do you think that's all we'll see of her? Do you think we'll see her next episode? Or do you think like her arc has been completed? Like she got what she wanted?
I feel like her story doesn't really need too much more because, like you said, like her arc can be completed by doing that, that scene with the axe. Because
I don't think we saw her at all in this episode.
No, I don't believe she showed up at all.
And they even went to the bar.
Right. Yeah. She's taking a breather after that insane shit last week. So, yeah, I would like to see her next episode, but I don't feel like there's anything in her story that needs to be wrapped up.
Yeah.
If they're on a time crunch, they got 1 episode left, and they're not going to do more than an hour for next week, then I would like an appearance. But does she need to be directly involved in anything major? No.
But I do agree with him. It would be nice if she was in future seasons.
Yeah, and I still don't know 100% for certain if we're getting more of this story.
Yeah, of these characters.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens with that. Maybe
it would be cool to pull the secondary characters, and make them
expand their stories,
and make them full characters, like those kids, the kids in that church place that were all weird.
Yeah, I would honestly
expand on that shit.
I'm gonna be okay with whatever they do. I think I'm biased, but they've super delivered this season for me.
Unless this next episode totally bombs.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't see how it could go super badly, but
I think it wouldn't go bad. It would just go frustrating. But if it is supposed to be wrapped up in 1 season, then I guess we should get some bookends to it. So
yeah, I don't know. We got quite a bit in the episode we're about to cover. I don't really know where they're going, but I would like answers. I would like definitive answers. If we don't get them, I've had enough awesome moments in this season to feel like I'm fulfilled with the show. But still, there's always going to be that, like, if you don't get everything, there's that part of you that's like, well, damn it, we don't know what happened there, you know?
I guess any consolation we can take from that is we saw Bill Skarsgard's naked butt.
Sure, we'll go with that. On that note, let's check out this episode, shall we?
Ugh.
Oh, before I do that, I just checked my morning Facebook likes. Sarah liked my passive aggressive post, and then also liked the post that when I said we were stoked to cover this week's episode.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah. I believe everybody, like, you know, before we cover it, I try not to get into spoilers on the page, on the Facebook group.
I appreciate that because I haven't seen it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, people have been respectful in there, but the amount of likes I got on that one post about us covering this episode means that people also liked it, I think. So, on that note, let's and on Skarsgard's butt, let us start the breakdown of this episode, shall we? We shall. Okay, so the opening segment. I wanted to mention the recap of last week, or important information, because they do that every episode, and
it gives you an idea.
Yeah, what's awesome is, and I thought about this at work last night too. It sort of narrows the target a little bit, like because there's so much information we've got already, and you're going into an episode sort of blind. The episodes don't always directly connect to one another, like event and then right after event. You know what I mean?
Totally.
So these recap things.
Yeah, they're like, this is what you need to remember.
Yeah, this is what you should focus on in your brain right now.
Yeah.
Before we get into this.
Yeah.
Because shit's about to get crazy. Okay, so I also mentioned it strongly infers that the kid thinks he is Henry. And I didn't know anything else besides that.
This
but
kid don't think it.
but the collection of information that they compiled in previous episodes made us see that he at least thinks he is Henry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Based on all the information we have so far. So.
Well, and I said last episode, what if he is Henry?
Right. Yeah. We discussed that a little bit, and I agreed that it certainly could be that. So, beginning of this episode, we hear Pastor Deaver doing some narration. I thought he might be like telling a story to somebody.
And as we're hearing this, there's like a fire all over town.
Yeah, there's an overview of 2 terrifying accidents in the town. A helicopter accident and a bus crash.
With the train.
Yeah. They're pretty brutal. But they're from high above, which I thought it was an interesting way to show those. Yeah. And the narration is saying, God is punishing the town. Excuse me. It says here, mother thought... okay, so then we see some flashbacks of Deaver as a kid. Pastor Deaver.
Yes.
And he says that his mom thought that he was possessed because he was crying a lot.
Yeah,
that's a little bit of a stretch. She thought that, like, she brings in a hanger and chokes him with it as a baby.
Yeah.
She thought that she killed him, and he stops crying for a little bit, so she kind of did.
Yeah.
And then...
she just walks out.
Yeah, and then you don't see him, but you hear him start up crying again, and he says it felt like a resurrection.
Yeah, he said the Lord saved them both that day.
Right.
So he dedicated his life to trying to hear the voice.
Right. And he waited for God's instructions his entire life. And then we see...
and he says God answered.
Yeah, God eventually answered.
And he built the cage.
And he built his own cage in his basement. This is not a cage that we've seen before. In a vision we saw it from whoever was in the cage's perspective. But the only cage that we heard about before this was in the prison for sure.
Right.
And then we saw hints of a cage And then, of course, the box that was in the backyard of that dude's house. So we've been kind of teased a little bit, and now we're getting more concrete information here. But nobody has ever mentioned that there was a cage in the basement of Henry's house.
Yeah.
I don't know that we were ever in Henry's basement, though. In our normal timeline.
Think so. No.
In our normal
yeah.
place of events, right?
I don't think so.
So far, we think we're still in the same timeline or universe or whatever, right?
So, okay.
Dimension.
So as soon as I saw that he had built his own cage and said God answered, I wrote down like a theory of mine, which was the whole fucking town's involved. Because in past episodes, the kid talks about how they're all going to pay.
Yeah.
And so I have a feeling that at some point, to me, it feels like multiple people heard this voice from God and built their own cages.
Well, there was Deaver and there was Lacey were for sure involved in the kid's disappearance. You remember that? Mm-hmm. Like, you know.
I just feel like more people in the town were involved.
Yeah, more than that we've known before. Yeah. Is what you mean, yeah? Yeah,
because this is where I start going down the line of, these alternate timelines are probably really real.
Yeah.
This is where it's actually going.
Sure.
My thinking's been right. They really are one and the same people.
And, I was questioning whether or not this was Henry's cage because, they've been talking about how he was also kidnapped and that's why he was disappeared.
As soon as we saw that cage, I was like, so that's where that kid's been.
Yeah, and and it looked like the same sort of setup that we saw in the previous visions that Henry was having.
Mm-hmm, with the little cars.
Yeah, so I figured it was Henry's cage.
Yeah.
Which, doesn't make sense based on previous information that we've gotten so far.
No.
But we're going to get some more information.
All signs point to yes.
Yeah. So, okay. The kid, that's where they do the intro, right?
Yes.
And next scene opens with the kid running, and he's like in sweats. Mm-hmm. And the cops fly past.
Yeah, you hear sirens.
And I still think that we're in the previous episode's stuff. Like
he's running from the cops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's meant to throw you. Mm-hmm. And then
they go widescreen, and you're like, well, where did this big city come from?
Exactly. And why does it look so kind of nice?
Yeah.
So you're immediately off put, like, okay, something weird is going on right now.
He's not where he was.
And so, yeah, exactly. He's not anywhere close. And you get, you immediately kind of realize that the kid is not the same.
No. Well, there goes you.
There goes that. We see him in a business suit.
Yeah.
And he's in a really swanky loft-like apartment.
This is the Skarsgard I like to see.
Oh, okay.
He reminded me so much of his brother in this. The way they walk, they have the exact same stance. It's that I am so tall, I kind of hunch over stance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's playing like a different character almost in this.
He's very suave and sophisticated, and it's a whole new...
It threw me off big time. Because I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
I'm pretty sure I was like upstairs bouncing around going, I fucking knew it.
So
I don't know what I knew, but I knew it.
He sees a note from somebody named M, and it's like a real girlfriendy type note.
Yeah, she writes, break a brain today.
Yeah, which is weird to say, but whatever.
It makes sense like a second later.
Yeah, and then so he's right, exactly. He's giving a speech about continuity and the sequence of events in life, and then he mentions Alzheimer's. So that kind of harkens back to stuff that we've seen before with Ruth. Mm-hmm. And the whole time you're just watching like, what in the hell is happening right now? He mentions Puck,
which is a kitten.
Which is a cat, but it was also Henry's old dog, if you remember that.
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah, I wrote, Puck is now a kitten.
Yeah, so things are beginning to overlap in weird ways. And yeah, so he's giving a presentation about implants.
Yeah,
right?
he figured out,
and not the kind that men like
cats
but...
that have like FCD, which is kind of like a feline Alzheimer's. He figured out an implant that he can put in the brain, and so now the cat remembers where his food bowl is. Like, he remembers simple things now.
Mm-hmm. Which we approve of, improving kitties' lives.
Mm-hmm.
I got to say that definitively on the podcast.
Oh, heck yeah. It was a cute little ginger kitten.
I mean, I cleared off this tote so that we'd have a table for the podcast setup. And Venom has...
Well, he lays on the table upstairs.
Yeah, exactly.
He's got to lay on the
He's
the
like,
table.
well, you guys have a table. It's smaller, but I can still fit.
He's got to do what he's got to do.
Okay, so then we see the kid, our swanky kid, with the M chick, we assume.
Yes.
He gets a phone call from Alan.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously this is some kind of different... now it's kind of concrete that it's some kind of different universe.
Oh, yeah.
Or
alternate
version.
reality.
Different version of reality than we've known before. Because Alan is calling him.
Yeah, and saying something happened with his dad.
Yeah, exactly. And he says his mom's fine. So that's also different.
Also, did you realize that he has two-toned eyes?
I did not.
The kid Henry.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know how else to write him in here. And that's how the subtitles had dubbed him on the show. It was
really?
Kid/Henry.
Yeah. It gets very confusing. So
it does.
I'm going to try to keep it clarified as well as I can.
He has two different colored eyes. The entire episode.
Yeah, that's odd. Maybe is that different from before?
I don't know. I don't think he had two-toned colored eyes.
I don't think so either. It's something we probably would have noticed before.
I noticed it this time. I wonder if it's real.
Okay. He says it's about your dad, and so as soon as this conversation happens, I write down, Ruth is the kid's mom? So this version of the kid thinks he's Henry. Like, no doubt.
He is Henry.
Well, he's Henry. But he's not Henry.
See, okay. As
soon
as this episode started...
How am I supposed to accept that he's Henry?
I have accepted it completely.
Okay.
I am fully on board.
Well, yeah, you got to be at a certain point because...
Yeah, I was fully on board as soon as this episode started, and I saw him running and he was all snazzy. Yeah. I was like, fuck yeah, now we can see this version of Henry.
It's very, very odd, but I'm with you. Like, eventually you just kind of roll with it.
I was super stoked.
Yeah, like when we start getting all these reveals and things are like just flying at you, it's like it's a Twilight Zone episode, and I'm in love with Twilight Zone and anything like that. So
upstairs while we were watching this episode, I could not sit in one spot. Like I kept moving all around and like writing notes.
Yeah,
and, like, being up, like just adjust because I could not sit still. I was so excited for what was happening.
It's very good, at least in my opinion. In our opinion. So, Kid Henry taxis home to Castle Rock immediately.
A really nice Castle Rock, too.
Yeah, and he doesn't have to take the bus like regular Henry does.
No, and like there's people in the town and everybody's happy.
Yeah, it's the fall festival.
Yeah, and
which is not happening.
Businesses are open.
In the Castle Rock we know, there is no fall festivals happening.
No.
Everybody's pretty miserable.
Yeah.
He goes to the same house that our regular Henry goes to.
What was Ruth's house.
Right. And the house is significantly more cluttered. He has visions of the pastor, his dad, and you hear a voice say, "Death is swallowed up in victory." So it's the pastor's voice.
Yeah.
Which I didn't know what that meant, but. Moving on.
And this is his house. He did not die when off the cliff. He has lived in this timeline.
Right.
And his house is a mess.
Yeah, it's everything is different about this kind of reality than we've seen before. So, the kid has memory of flashlight flashing from Molly's window as well. It's part of his visions. Mm-hmm. Then he goes next door to the house that our regular Henry was kind of weirded out by all the time.
Molly's house.
Molly's house, right. he sees her sister, who Molly had to meet up with in the bar early on in the season.
And remember, she was the one that was doing well for herself.
Right.
And Molly was the one struggling. And now in this timeline,
Bridget's moving in.
Yeah, she's the one struggling.
Yeah. But they're both very cheery, which is not how they were in our world. So I'm trying to like pinpoint a way to describe back and forth. Like it's so hard to really say what you mean or whatever. I don't know. Hopefully people will be able to understand what we're talking about, but they did just watch the episode. So, okay. So yeah, I wrote it here again. There's no way this isn't a separate universe because everybody's different.
Yeah.
And I wrote down other nows and other wins is what Willie said, and that's very kind of exactly what we're seeing, you know. When they're trying to explain the schisma or whatever.
Yeah.
That's kind of where that whole thing came from. But anyway. Molly, let's see. Like I said, is not the same. We get the information that Ruth and Alan live in Sarasota now.
Mm-hmm. And Molly is going for mayor.
Right. You know, our kid Henry's trying to find out kind of like why his dad committed suicide.
So, but in this timeline, Ruth actually runs away with Henry and moves, and Alan comes with him. So, like, she actually did it in this timeline.
Yeah, she escaped. Let's see. So the information on his dad is that his dad left the church, kind of went into hiding, like hermit kind of stuff, and that's why the house looks like that, I assume. And then, you know...
And he blew his head off.
Yeah, exactly. And then they kind of reminisced about their past and how Molly knew things, even in this version. Find out that Kid Henry's wife or girlfriend or whatever she is named Marin. Mm-hmm. Wasn't sure if that related to anybody else.
It told us what the M stood for, I think. So.
And then there's a kind of a phone conversation where she's checking in. They have some like pregnancy talk. Obviously, she's trying to get pregnant.
Well, if she's not had her period by the next day, then she needs to take a test.
Kind of all of their conversations that we see in this episode focus around that.
They're sweet, you know. They're trying to start a family. And while this is going on, like the power went out in the house, so he's like going downstairs to try to trip the.
Right, and actually, this whole pregnancy thing makes what happens at the end of this episode more kind of jarring because he's taken out of this like kind of wholesome sort of reality that he has for himself, or this life that he is trying to build for himself, and it becomes complete hell, you know. Let's see. So yeah, like you said, he's in the basement now while he's on the phone, and then he sees a fucking cage in the corner.
He gets the power on, and it's just like, bam!
Boom, reveal, cage.
Boy in cage.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, who the hell is this? And you see the dark skin. You see a close-up of an eye. And it's dark skin, but you could kind of make out that it's a younger person too.
It's young Henry.
Yeah, so it's young Henry.
Oh my God.
So there's our kind of reveal of where those visions were coming from, and that connects us directly to our version of Henry getting those visions. He's seeing the visions from the other side of whatever this universe is.
Wherever
So messed up. But I love it. It's an awesome way to reveal that, too.
Well, because their lives are very circular of each other.
Right. So, yeah, and that was kind of my guess, though, is that it was going to be young Henry, and he hasn't aged just like the kid hasn't aged. So, they're like reflections of each other.
Yeah.
You know? Very weird. Super Twilight Zone-y. Awesome. Awesome stuff. Okay, so... Then we go to the next scene. The police are there. We see Officer Z again, which I was happy about.
And he's not as sullen or depressed because he's an actual officer. He's not in the jail working as a security guard.
Yeah, and we get the confirmation that it is young Henry. And he's been taken out of the cage at this point.
Yeah, because he says he's Henry Deaver. And this is where I wrote down they're in some weird fucking loop.
Yeah, but there's differences and similarities in the way that the kid in the cage is discovered. In this one, he's discovered. The police are called immediately. He's taken out. He's cared for somewhat. You know what I mean? Whereas in ours, in this awful hellish reality that we live in the normal version, they're like, we should keep him down there.
Well, is that the normal version?
I don't know.
That's just the version we've been seeing.
Exactly, yeah. So, they're like, should we keep him in there? Let's not tell anybody about him.
Yeah.
Not care for him at all. There's like 2 people that even give a shit he's in there.
I know. Pretty much the whole episode, I just kept feeling worse and worse for the kid.
Yeah, but at least like in this one, they're, in our semi-wholesome version of Castle Rock, that there's people that actually give a shit and they call the cops and
Well, yeah, but I just felt really bad for the kid that we've seen being
totally.
kid. Yeah, Skarsgard. I just felt really bad for him this entire episode because I'm this is not how he was treated at all.
They think he's fucking Satan.
Yeah, he really got the short end of the stick on this one.
Yeah, but then also he,
and the life he has.
And when he gets near people, murder happens.
Yeah.
That hasn't really been explained yet. And also, we see later some of the similar things happen with young Henry, too.
Yeah.
Young Henry version, too, I guess. I don't know how you even explain who these people are at this point.
Well, you got Kid Henry, and then you have young Henry.
Yeah, but then when you say Kid Henry, people think you mean young Henry.
Then you could say the Kid Henry.
Yeah. We could make it racist and be like Black Kid Henry.
I'll just call him Skarsgard.
That works too. We're spending too much time trying to figure that out, I think. Anyway.
We need a key for the top of this episode.
Yeah, exactly.
So you know what we say when we say it.
I knew it was going to be a problem. So the scenes play out very similarly. The kid is only saying Henry's name. The dad heard the voice of God in the woods. And...
Well, yeah, because Officer Z asks Skarsgård if his dad ever touched you. And
right.
He's like, no. And he was like, he was fucked up. He heard the voice of God. He dragged me out to the woods.
Right. And our kid...
He never did anything like this.
The kid Henry left the town when he was as young Henry was.
Mm-hmm.
So
he's never seen him again.
So that kind of matches up as well. You know. But young Henry... from the cage hears a noise, and we get sort of the ramp up of the God voice or whatever it is.
Right.
The schism. I said that wrong, but anyway, yeah, he attempts to run into the woods after it.
Yeah, with all these police around.
Right, and
that doesn't work.
They're like, "Why is he running towards the woods? What the hell is happening?"
Tackled his ass.
Yeah, then they take him away to the hospital, and so we go the next day. The kid hears...
Well, and Bridget says to Molly, because it's a small town, so everybody's standing around watching. She says, where was he trying to go? Mm-hmm. So that makes you think, well, what's in the fucking woods that he's trying to get to?
Yeah, well, and then...
has he wanted to get back to that?
Yeah, the
entire time he's been in this cage?
Sure. And you've been, we think about all the stuff that's happened in the woods before this, too. And... something is connecting the two together.
Don't go in the woods.
It's the woods, right? It's the woods. It's the lake. It's the bluff area.
It's the whole town.
And it goes back to our predictions very early on, which we mentioned off podcast a little bit, and we'll get to them again later. But that there is some kind of connecting doorway or interdimensional doorway or something in these woods that is where we're hearing this noise and stuff. Mm-hmm. And we'll get to that later, but just want to mention that we were right. Pat ourselves on the back a bit. So yeah. The kid Henry from this episode, not young Henry, kid Henry hears a tape recording of the pastor.
Yeah, it says week 1,437.
Yeah. So he's been tape recording essentially his entire life.
Yeah.
And he's speaking about the town accidents, like the opening of this episode, the bus crash, the helicopter accident, various other things.
He talks about the girl 200 years ago.
Right.
That ate her family. And he says, is that when all of this terribleness began?
Yeah, he's trying to pinpoint,
what the town did.
The beginning of all the evil that is permeated from this town. So we see Kid Henry go out to the garage. He takes a voice recorder he starts going through all the tapes. Jeez. Feeling kind of gassy for a second. Ooh. We see the tape recorder and all those numerous tapes out in the garage. He grabs the tape recorder. He takes it out in the woods with him.
Yeah, don't go in the woods.
Yeah,
Stop
everybody's attracted to it.
Stop it, people.
He finds a box very similar to the RV Spiky.
Yeah, and they said that was the only one. So that was the only one in their reality because Matthew Deaver had died. And they had to build it. But in this reality, he did build it.
Right. And, we get more feeling of worlds sort of in reality sort of overlapping here.
And the whole time we're hearing, again, the voiceover of Matthew Deaver. Because he's talking about, let's see, the Bad Patch and the woods praying and how to end all this. And
right.
How he hears the knock on the back door and he grabs his bat and opens up the back door and it's young Henry.
Right.
From the other universe.
Yeah. So very, very eerie stuff going on. I actually did forget to mention stuff from another book that I started reading up again after I finished with damn it, why am I brain farting right now? Needful Things. I started reading Wasteland again. I picked it back up, and okay, so there's a moment where two main characters, Jake and Roland, talk about sharing Kef, which is basically living out each other's dreams. So they're like two halves of the same person. So that very much relates to what we're dealing with right now, is these two realities.
Two halves of Henry Deaver.
Yeah, the same whole. And then I thought about the chessboard, the black and white of the chessboard. Actually, Jared mentioned this at band practice this week too. How the chessboard, he was thinking about how, the black and the white and the two realities over intercrossing or whatever. And then in something I read last night in the Wasteland, there's very similar stuff. There's a World War II plane that is just outside of the city that our main characters come upon. And it's the same kind of stuff that's happening here, where this box has appeared in this universe with no explanation. It's just sort of there.
Right.
Little stuff is just overlapping all the time. And this whole episode is like that, So where do we leave off at? Where were you? What did you mention? Sorry.
Well, he sees young Henry at the door, and he said he was going to call the police, but at that point, the young Henry says, "I heard it, Dad." And
yeah, and he says he calls him Dad.
Yeah.
So that jarred him, And then let's see. So yeah, okay. My notes are kind of jumbled here for a second. Okay, so he tells him he heard the voice finally, and that there was no more of Mom's lies. So the kid is telling the dad, Mom is telling me to lie to you, but I heard it.
Yeah. Well, and he's saying he woke up in the forest, and the town is different, and no one knows me. Says he's Henry's adopted son.
Right.
That he prays in Castle Woods and he listens for it and he wouldn't trick him. So everything he's telling him are things that make sense.
Right.
to make him think that, all right, yeah, I should just keep this kid.
Yeah, there's, nobody else knew that Ruth was trying to trick him. So it proved to him that this person legitimately was his son. Then he says so then our new Pastor Deaver was gone, and Henry, the kid, was gone, and he woke up in the woods, like you said. Castle Rock is different. No one recognizes him at all. So he's in this new reality.
So this is where the kid went when he went missing for those 10 days.
Yeah, exactly. So we finally got that answer.
And why he didn't need to have a coat because he wasn't cold. Because it's not winter there.
Exactly, yeah. Let's see. So we see the kid as Henry breaking caution tape in the house.
And you're still hearing the voiceover of Matthew Deaver.
Right,
He's talking about redemption.
Our new Pastor Deaver's talking about, restoration, his new son being returned to him.
He said he wished and he desired, and
yeah, he didn't pray, he wished.
Yeah.
So that he considers is like blasphemy. Not what he should have been doing.
No.
And it attracted only evil to him by wishing instead of...
Yeah, so then eventually he says this is no son of his, and it's the deceiver.
So he drugs young Henry, this new young Henry that has appeared in his life. And then we see in the current timeline of this episode, the kid gets inside the cage.
Yeah.
And this is sort of the origins of the Pastor Deaver thinking that the kid is the devil. Thinking that the kid that we've seen all along is the devil, And it's just a crazy confluence of information that we've been wondering about the entire time, right? We're finally getting answers to questions that we've had since almost the first episode.
Yeah.
And, it's sort of like the leash is like leading us there, but not 100% there. You know what I mean? Like there is some stuff still to be discovered in the next episode, but it's awesome that we're at least getting as far as we have. You know what I mean? Learning more about the pastor, learning more about the kid's disappearance. This is a lot kind of dropped on us.
Yeah.
In this episode. Which I assumed was going to happen because we only had 2 left. So.
Yeah. So what they need to do to work all this shit out is to kill Pastor Deaver somehow off the cliff so that he doesn't go crazy like he did.
Yeah.
And then also leave the town as a family.
Yeah, well, I think what we're going to see is...
For their timeline to get better.
Yeah. Well,
you go back in time and do all that.
For me to feel satisfied with the end of the series, and I know we're skipping ahead a little bit, but we need to see the resolution of young Henry's story of what happened on the day they were at the bluff.
Yeah.
Why
he fell.
Why he fell, how exactly he disappeared into the other world or whatever. I want to see all that stuff happen.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get back into this. So we have Molly and the kid again, and they're discussing events and how young Henry knew things that happened to the kid Henry, right?
Yeah, well, she's saying, because he's asking if she had heard anything like about what his dad was doing, and she said she tuned him out because he was crazy.
Right. But the young Henry knew about stuff that happened to... the version of Henry that we see in this episode, the kid Henry.
Yeah.
So he's kind of trying to dig more and find out how the hell he knew things that he knew. There's the recording that says, taught him to carve soap into figurines. So the Reverend, we get where the origin of that whole behavior came from. The Reverend taught him how to do that. While he was in the cage?
Yeah. So it also makes you wonder how, because time's not passing the same when they're in, the other reality. Because how long was, young Henry stuck in that cage with Pastor Deaver. I mean, years, right?
Yeah, well, I think it's the 27 years.
Yeah, and really it was only 10 days. So you can only hope that with the kid Henry, Skarsgard's character, if he does ever get back to his actual reality, then hopefully it's only been 10 days and his wife, girlfriend, is only just slightly worried about him.
Yeah, I don't think that it's going to work out that way, unfortunately, but maybe.
That's my hope.
Maybe we'll just get a nice clean swap.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the end. Yeah.
I want everybody to be happy.
Well,
this is Stephen King, right?
Story,
Everybody's
so
happy?
Maybe.
No,
we'll see.
That never happens.
I think a couple of people will be. That's the most we can hope for.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then he says blood will run in the streets until he is back in the cage. So that's still Deaver on the recording.
Yeah.
We see the police fly by Molly and the kid. And then we hear that there's several dead at the hospital.
Yeah, well, they go to try to find the kid because they want to ask him questions.
Right.
Young
and
Henry.
as they get there, they realize, holy shit.
Something bad happened.
Shit's going crazy.
Yeah.
They're accusing young Henry from the cage of doing these things.
Mm-hmm.
So not so wholesome after all of a place.
No.
But...
And they say 7 are dead and 10 are missing.
Right, so strangely similar stuff to what happened with...
Juniper Hills.
Yeah, with Kid.
Mm-hmm. Take him to a place and the whole place burns down.
Yeah, hospital fire again.
Yeah.
So, great stuff. Quiet you. That counts as an interruption, by the way. Yeah. Venom's being nice and quiet right now.
I'm sleeping.
Okay, so we go to the police station after this.
Yeah, we see Officer Z again.
Yep, they go into the interrogation room with young Henry. It's Molly and Kid Henry with him. They give him some sweet sunglasses to put on, so there's another overlap.
Yeah. The only thing he says is his name is Henry Matthew Deaver. Like, he doesn't give his age.
Right, and we get the information that there's danger and closeness yet again. And so, yes, it was young Henry.
Well, he says, did you start the fire? And he says, yes. And when they said why, he says he couldn't stop him. The boy in his bed next to mine got too close.
Yeah, exactly. So we hear an increase in the noises again. And he just says he urgently needs to get back to the woods, is what we get from him. And that's really all that we get from him.
That poor kid.
I know.
At least with the kid, Henry, he's an adult.
Right.
With this other guy, he's just a little kid that's been kidnapped.
They're both having a pretty rough go of it, though.
Yeah. I don't know who has it worse.
Molly and young Henry touch. She sees our event timeline from all the previous episodes.
Yeah, all the visions. All the visions.
Which is, so we're connecting Molly to her other version now. Molly gets young Henry from these cops. She's able to kind of convince them.
She says she's going to take him home for the night because he needs to be in an actual bed.
They're like, fine, for one night you can have him and then we'll come get him tomorrow, which is a bit of a stretch, but,
it's a small town. She's almost mayor.
Sure.
So Officer Z follows them in his own car.
Right. And this is where I thought Officer Z was going to kill himself in front of a train. Because everything bad happens on this show. And Z died.
No, immediately when we saw Officer Z, we were like, all right, who's going to be shooting up this time? Like,
right, exactly.
Who are you shooting now for no reason?
Who's going to sneak out of the woods and kill Officer Z while... Yeah, so anyway, Z's following them. They get to a train crossing. And they zip in front of the train before Officer Z can get his car into gear.
Yeah, Molly kind of like has a freak out moment. And she's just like, we got to help him.
Yeah. So, young Henry and the kid and Molly all run into the woods after they get a little bit up the road.
As one does.
Right. They're near the lake. They're near the bluff area. Young Henry starts to get a sort of like vision-y sort of thing where like it's a real glossy look to the world, and it
very
starts
bright.
to become very bright, like it's light out. And we eventually see what that's from. But young Henry sees a lady with a knife in the woods.
Yeah, well, is that so Nick seems to think that's the girl that ate her family.
I think so too.
Yeah. Which makes sense.
Yeah, I actually didn't pick up that specific story. You know, I was furiously writing down notes, so like some of the stuff gets past me, but you mentioned it earlier.
And I was writing down notes, and so he saw her before I did,
Yeah.
and he was like, that's the girl that ate her family. And I looked up, and I'm like,
do you guys have to stop and start as often as I do?
oh yeah, we're constantly pausing. Yeah, for sure.
That does, okay, so I will say this, and we'll get back to recap in a second, but that does sort of take me out of watching the show a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, I love the show, and I've enjoyed it, but some of it, like, sometimes I don't have time to watch the full episode again without interruptions and without taking notes. Like, when we have to do it on Thursday, and I only have time to watch it on Wednesday, which is the same with you. I don't get to watch it before we do this. So sometimes I don't have time during the week to rewatch it. And we've gone over everything that's happened. So it does sort of change my experience of the show a little bit. That's not enough to make me not want to do this podcast, because I have enjoyed it and people are responding to us doing it.
No, I think what will be enjoyable for us is when it's over, we can just start it back up again. And
yeah,
not
exactly.
Have to take
like
notes
binge it.
and enjoy it. Yeah.
And also, Lindsay is currently two episodes behind, so I will be able to rewatch those two at least.
Oh, there you go.
Because I'm going to have to if she's going to watch it. That's kind of how it works in our house. It's like, if we're going to watch a show, if she's ever going to see a show, I'll have to watch it and then rewatch it with her. Just because, like, we're on two different schedules. You know what I mean? That's just how it happens. Okay, so one more page of notes left. Molly sees the lady with the knife too, which is interesting.
So it's like an invisible wall.
Yeah, they get pulled in.
They get to, like, the young Henry stops and he sees the chick with the knife.
Yep.
And Molly walks up to him, and it's like, as soon as she, like, touches him, like, she sees, and you see that it's just like a wall. And then poor Skarsgard Henry, he's just off in the woods still, not seeing anything.
Yeah.
And Officer Z.
This is about where, everything is getting super frantic and ramped up. Z catches up to them eventually. And he just sees them running.
Yeah, well, so the girl with the knife starts running away, and they start chasing her, but nobody else sees this girl, so they just see them chasing nothing, or running away.
Yeah, they're far enough distance away, and, I think a lot of this has to do with their shine, too. Like, they're the strongest in the shine, so they're more susceptible to whatever this force is pulling them in.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So, as it's ramping up here, we see the crows flying through the air, the birds again. The woman's running, like you said. And here's where we get the reveal in the sky of this gigantic light that's not, it's not the sun.
No.
It's just a big sort of like open aura, or like you said, orange, bright sort of thing up in the air.
It's almost like if you took off my glasses and put them on somebody who didn't need glasses.
And you looked at the sun.
Said, look at the sun.
Yeah.
That's what you would see.
Very sort of unfocused, but there's like light sort of like permeating from it.
It's very trippy
all
looking.
around it. Yeah. And that seems to be the center of the force or whatever this is going on in the woods, which you've never seen before.
No.
So it's a doorway, sort of. It's a thinny, like I mentioned from the Dark Tower universe. It's something like that. And this noise that everybody hears is close to whatever this place is in the woods. So Z apparently shoots a warning shot.
Well, he thought it was a warning shot.
Well, he says he shoots up in the air, but in whatever side that they're in, it goes directly at Molly.
Oh, yeah. So we finally have what the kid had said to Molly in last episode was, you died in the woods or
Right.
whatever he said. Like, we finally, like, as soon as I saw him running in the woods, I was like, damn it, Officer Z, you're going to fucking shoot her.
Yep. And
like,
Molly,
he just can't win. Molly
goes down pretty much right away.
Yeah.
And Molly, on for her dying word, says help him.
Yeah, she just repeats help him, help him,
and she
help
means young Henry Deaver.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's death all around, and it's pretty brutal.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, it's just him.
Him meaning the kid.
The kid, Henry.
The Henry that we've seen this entire episode.
It's
who
just
is
him
the kid
in the woods, and it's snowy.
It's snowy,
which it wasn't before.
Right, exactly, and it's light out.
Yeah.
Which is different. They went in to the situation in the darkness, and they come out and it's snowy in the light. So, we kind of start getting the feeling that we are back in our original universe.
In 1991.
Right, and we're in the bluff sort of area of the woods. So he's sort of we get the feeling he's been transported, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we see the frozen lake.
Mm-hmm.
And he sees young Henry running out over the lake, right?
To Alan. Mm-hmm.
It's Alan?
To Alan,
yeah.
Oh,
to Alan. Yeah, that's right. So...
Because that's the point where Alan is out there looking for him.
Yep.
And he's not there.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden he is there.
Right. So...
Because the trees groaned and did all their weird shit and spit out them.
Yeah, so we're officially back in our timeline in 91.
Yeah.
At the very beginning of the series.
Mm-hmm.
The kid...
well, and then we flash back to
the room.
To the room
at
with
the end
kid,
of last episode.
With the kid and Molly.
So our normal timeline.
Mm-hmm.
And the kid says that he wandered around in those woods for a while. That he's talking about 91.
And he couldn't get back.
Couldn't get back. That's when Lacey found him and took him to Shawshank. And there begins our...
Because Lacey heard the call from God.
Right.
And thought he was the devil. And then he's like, do you believe me now?
So, holy effing shit. That ties together a big, big question mark that we've been wondering about. Yeah, exactly.
It at least shows the connection.
Yeah. Which, like, that was the big thing that people were, and we were also wondering about the entire time.
Yeah, like, how are they connected?
How the hell is all of this going to connect? And I'll be damned if they didn't do it.
They fucking did it so well.
But they did it using parallel universes, like we guessed long time ago.
And when we talked about it, we brought up From a Buick 8.
Yeah.
Because you were talking about, oh, well, he doesn't do too much of that. And I was like, well, there's a fucking car that's a portal. Like, that thing sucks people in.
But I knew he did it in Dark Tower stuff.
Yeah.
So it certainly was on the table.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like you said, from Buick 8, evil stuff comes out of the ethereal universe. Yeah. I love that they did it this way.
Mm-hmm. It's total Stephen King. Like,
yeah,
even if it wasn't him writing this,
yeah,
it's so his world.
It is an easy fix to a plot problem, though.
Yeah, but I don't feel like they went into it with going, we have a problem. I'm sure they went into it going, we're going to fuck everybody's mind.
They definitely thought this through from the beginning and were like, this is a way that we can tie this together. And...
Complete opposite of Westworld.
Yeah.
Westworld, those people have no idea what they're doing.
I think like writers can get in trouble trying to reverse engineer sometimes. Mm-hmm. But if you start that way at the beginning of the process, then it works a little better, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so thoughts and theories at the end of this episode. Here's what I wrote. And I haven't looked at this since I wrote it, so here we go. Either this is the jumping off point for the final resolution of the series, or our Henry, our version of Henry, is going to poke holes in the kid's story. So I feel like I'm leaning more towards the kid's version of his story to Molly is definitely what happened. Mm-hmm. But they could flip it again on us, like I said, and Henry could be like, well what about this and what about this? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know that necessarily this is, because we still have a full episode to go, so they could throw some other shit at us here. You know what I mean?
So my thing with original OG Henry not believing any of this, I totally feel like he won't, because it took him how many episodes to finally get it through his thick skull that Molly has some clairvoyance to her. So yeah, he's definitely not gonna.
Well, but in episode
he's gonna
8,
be like, okay, whatever.
Was it last episode that he was talking to Molly?
I know he's acting like he finally gets it, but I don't really know if he finally gets it.
Yeah. I don't know. All I'm saying is I got some doubt because there's a full episode left, and they did drop a lot of stuff on us here that feels like it's a nice tight bow, but I feel like there's still some slack there in the rope, and they could pull us in one or two different directions here.
Did you watch about the episode?
No, I didn't get to. I forgot to.
So they talk about how this whole episode is the kid telling his story to Molly.
Right.
So you have to kind of take that with a grain of salt.
That's what I mean, yeah.
Yeah, like this is him telling his story.
Sure. You can't take it all as 100% concrete stuff.
I'm taking it all as 100% concrete stuff. I believe him.
Okay. Well, listen.
I'm team kid.
I don't blame you because it's a hell of a story.
Yeah.
But there's the but. You know what I mean? And it's his butt.
It is his butt.
Okay, so for episode title, I was either going to go, what did I write? I got to make sure I get it right. Oh, yeah, it's the Ace Ventura Finkel is Einhorn. Einhorn is Finkel. Or our newfound title, which is Skarsgard's butt.
Skarsgard's butt. You know, if we made that the title and then you hashtag that, I'm sure we'd get lots of searches.
Yeah, but I don't know how to spell Skarsgard.
I can show you.
Okay. So you want to do that? Are you leaning towards Skarsgard's
butt? Yeah. Although I do love Finkel as Einhorn.
Einhorn is Finkel.
Yeah.
Einhorn's a man.
I would say we would do it 100%, but we didn't see a dog this episode.
That's right. Yeah, when's a dog gonna show back up?
Where is that doggo from the first episode?
I mean, if he's not in the final episode, then I was wrong.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it. I was wrong.
Okay, so we were right about last episode's prediction that Molly was not in the Fight Club.
No.
She's not technically dead. She's only dead in the one half of reality. She's not dead in the one we've been seeing the entire time. So that exonates the whole Fight Club where, like, everybody's seeing a dead person.
But does she want to be? Like, she's alive with the sucky version of herself.
I don't know. I have a spot in my heart for the flawed Molly. I like her character.
I know, but the poor thing's got to buy drugs from teenagers.
Maybe she won't have to after this whole thing's wrapped up.
That's true.
We'll
see. That is true.
Let's hope for that happy ending.
And maybe the kid / Henry can like be like, hey, you know, in that other timeline I'm from, you're like almost the mayor. You should try for that.
You want to go back to that timeline with me?
Yeah.
We don't have to tell anybody you died. It was out in the woods. We'll just throw your dead body through to the other side.
Yeah, it's fine.
Clean swap. We were right about the early theory about parallel universes. I already mentioned that. Pat on the back. And we were right about the kid being Henry, or you were.
Yeah.
For now.
Although, that whole Ruth episode, though, is still tripping me up because of the way the kid acted in that episode.
Yeah, he came off as rather evil.
And like he was Matthew. So I'm still wondering about that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff, and I can't really pull examples out of my head right now just because we're so deep in this episode. But there is stuff that doesn't quite match up with the kid's story.
No.
Chief among them being the RV. The RV. And are we going to see the Macaulay brother?
Yeah, they threw them in for an episode.
Yeah.
ish a little bit
well,
more
I mean,
than that.
the one is dead.
Yeah, and so
but are we going to see him return in the final episode?
Yeah, I mean, I would hope so. Otherwise, I'm just going to be wondering what the hell happened to him. I mean, unless you show me he's dead, I'm going to think he's alive.
I think it's asking a lot to get everything that we've seen up to this point tied up in the last episode.
It is not. If you're going to throw it at me, you need to tie it up.
I mean, I would say you're right, but in a horror story, that doesn't happen. I'm sorry to tell you, but I don't feel like we're getting every answer we want out of this.
Well, then Mark Bernard is going to get some more Twitter tweets.
You're missing the last syllable of his last name, though. It's Mark Bernardin.
Bernardin. Yeah. Mark Bernardin.
Mark Bernard is a two first name, though.
Mark
and I like
Bernardin.
That.
Mark with a C is going to get some very angry tweets if he doesn't wrap this up.
He
nicely.
only wrote one episode.
I don't care.
He helped with the other ones. He contributed, but I don't care.
He's on the hook.
He's our only connection.
Yeah.
That has answered us so far, anyway. We could ask Stephen King.
I was
he
just
wasn't
gonna
involved.
Say we could tweet Stephen King. He won't know, but
that's not going to work unless it's about Trump. Mm-hmm. You don't care. Well, let's not get into that. Jeez, that's a. Yeah, but like I said, I think with dramas, really well written dramas like Better Call Saul, which you can hear Mike and Jimmy talk about Better Call Saul.
Nice plug.
WatchersOnTheCouch.com/subscribe. If you're talking about a show like Saul or a show like Breaking Bad, same people who wrote that, but prime examples of dramas that tie up everything really neat and nice. You're looking for awesome shows like that. Okay. Dramas like that. But horror stories, I think, kind of like leave it open-ended sometimes. They don't all suck. This one hasn't sucked, at least in my opinion.
Okay. So I don't have any theories because I've kind of thrown out all my theories. Okay. These are my hopes and dreams for the next episode.
Okay.
My hope and dream is that both Henrys go back to where they belong. Because I really want Skarsgård to have his happy life.
Okay.
I feel bad for him. Because the other Henry did get to grow up and live his life. You know, like he was stuck in a cage apparently for 27 years and doesn't remember it, but he did get to have a life after.
Right, exactly.
So it would be nice if, the Skarsgård dude did too, even though you could say he had a life before the cage as opposed to the other Henry. Anyway, off subject. I hope that they get their happy endings. That's my hope. I hope that we finally figure out why Matthew fell off the cliff. I want to know what happened with that dog and why he's burying heads. And I want to not have a Stephen King ending where it just ends. Because if that is how this show ends, with no resolution at all, it just fucking ends.
I can't see that happening.
I am going to be so outraged.
Yeah.
And we'll still watch the next season, but I will be outraged.
I definitely don't think there'll be a hard cut to black and it's like you decide the ending, like a Sopranos ending or something.
That's how Stephen King does it.
Okay, yeah, he's been guilty of doing it in some of his books, like Cell. Some.
I'm still salty over that.
I mean, that's also my chief hope is that we don't just get totally shut off and no resolution. I think it's a lot to ask for 100%. I think we'll get a good 85% of answers, and then the tertiary characters and stuff, they'll kind of be left, like a Jackie, like a dog bearing heads, like an RV, all those.
A Macaulay Culkin brother.
I think he'll return. I think something's going to happen with him because
they got to pay him off. I mean, why throw him in there just to only have him be in an episode?
He'll do a sneak attack on somebody.
Ooh, yeah.
He'll do.
Because he's probably just crazy enough.
That's almost guaranteed. You could take that to the bank.
Do you think that they did the poker in the ear before what's his face died? Do you think they were successful? Like, do you think when we see him, he's going to come out and he's going to
The
be
Macaulay
like,
brother?
Yeah, like blood from ears because he...
I don't think so. I think that he was about to deafen him.
Mm-hmm.
This is a theory, I guess. He was about to deafen him, and then he fought back, and he stabbed him in the face.
Oh, so you don't think Molly killed him?
No. I think...
Because that's what I assumed, was Molly just...
on her way in to save him? No.
Fuck some people up.
He was off away from... He was like... You could see the RV in the background, but he was sort of away from the door.
Yeah, I just figured she was a ninja.
No. What happened is...
No, okay.
And we'll find that this next episode.
Okay.
He was about to give him the deaf man treatment. Make him perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Macaulay brother fought back, and I love that we're calling him Macaulay brother and not by his character, Willie. He stabbed him in the face. He escaped for a later day, which will be 10th episode.
Okay.
And if that doesn't happen, then listen, listeners, I'm sorry. Okay, so we have arrived at our Church Creed segment. Sorry to say, no real notable contributors.
What about that the person that found us?
Well,
from the last episode.
There was 2 random people that have talked to us over the internet. One is Jacole or Nicole, and I remember I thought her name was just something. And so Jacole Tonawanda, she hasn't. There was no contributing for episode 8, so I can't give it to her. And then the person whose name was not a name that I've ever seen before, and actually the first name had a dash between it, which was strange. Not to be judgmental or anything, I know you're still listening out there. And we also didn't know what gender the person was, and we don't care.
No, they,
Zims, or... So, we didn't have any really, contributions from people that hadn't already won awards. So, that just means everybody else has a better chance of winning in the drawing next week. So, on the table already is the DVDs of 1408, Special Edition for Blockbuster, the Tom Cruise movie, not Tom Cruise, Tom Hanks. The hell am I talking about?
Green Mile.
Green Mile, there it is. The Church Creed Memorial Award for Audience Participation, which is a lovely cat.
Not my cat.
Not your cat, but it's a
cat statue.
And also, whoever won in our Cat Noise Award is apparently getting shipped off to the winner.
You get a Venom.
Maybe. We'll see. Depends on next episode.
Mm-hmm.
If Kinsley or somebody comes in like on fire.
It's very close right now. It's very, very close.
Let's see here. What was the other thing? There was another prize.
Oh, whatever they want.
Oh, that's right. The best prize.
Within reason.
Within reason. Whoever wins gets to pick something that we can buy for you. So, listen next week. If you've listened to all of these so far and you don't listen to the drawing next week, like, what the hell?
Yeah.
So, we're going to draw your name. Possibly. If you win, we'll send you some stuff. Or I'll see you in person. And oh, yeah. Or we won't. No, I will, for sure.
Now, if you're not
It'll either be delivered in person or I'll get your address and I'll send it to you via snail mail. How about that?
Mm-hmm.
And that brings us to our final segment, which is the Debbie explains to Chris what the teaser for next episode is. Debbie, explain to me what the teaser for next episode is to whatever length that you see necessary.
All right, so final episode.
Here we go.
We hear Molly say that Lacey, Officer Z, Juniper Hill, Alan, like all those bad things happened. She again says something is wrong with the kid. We hear a quote from the kid, and he says, "As long as I'm here, people will die. I can't help it."
So he thinks
if he stays in that timeline or in that universe,
the wrong
one, bad things are just going to keep happening.
So he thinks it's because he's in the wrong place.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess
that's very interesting. I didn't really think about that. I just thought it was because.
No, I didn't.
I guess I didn't really even think about why they. We didn't really discuss that. Why?
No, and I kind of felt that, and I know that sounds like, oh, yeah, sure you did, but I kind of felt that way because if you're in the wrong place, everything's gonna be wrong, and like shit's gonna go wrong because you're there. You're messing it up. It's like the ripple effect.
Yeah. What I'm trying to think of what. Oh, you know what? That is taken almost directly from 11/22/63, which is the Stephen King JFK book. Mm-hmm. When he's in he goes through a portal to the past, mm-hmm. And the longer he's there and the longer he's trying to change things, the more he tries to change things, the past fights against him.
Yeah.
So, and that's one of my favorite of the more recent Stephen King books. You definitely have to read that eventually. Read that. And the miniseries was all right, but the book was way more fun for me. Miniseries had James Franco in it. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, it's very much... I was trying to think, it's like, what other Stephen King thing does that? And that's the one. But, yeah, it's like reality of whatever they're in is fighting
Henry
against
Deavers.
them.
Yeah, there can't be two Henry Deavers in the same universe.
Yeah, and it's not even that they're changing things; it's just that they're existing.
Yeah, and
in a place
happening
in the wrong place. Mm-hmm. So that's a very interesting concept, and I love that concept from the JFK book. So I'm glad that they're bringing that in. Okay, so
so again we hear OG Henry say, "Who are you?" Mm-hmm. That man just cannot get it through. Like, just take what people say to you as face value.
You're right. He's
like,
still not getting it.
I guess not, or Jesus. It's out of context. I'm not sure. And then we hear and in between this, we're seeing lots of flashes and things. And then I believe it's another voiceover from Pastor Deaver, Matthew, and he's saying, "Do you hear it now?" And then you see out of that clip, a different type of clip, and the kid says, "Same as you." So I'm not sure what he's responding to because, they show things and all the dialogue's not going together. They're just piecing it together.
Right. But it's meant to be a teaser, not a total explanation.
5-minute clip.
Spoiler, yeah.
Yeah. So, so that's where we're at for the next episode.
I'm super pumped for it. I can't freaking wait.
I know.
Just from yesterday to today, I was pumped to cover this one.
Oh, yeah.
And I can only imagine what kind of crazy loopy shit we're going to get next week.
All day yesterday, when you texted me yesterday morning and said you started it.
I told you I was excited.
I was so frustrated that I could not watch it because I knew it wasn't going to be until last evening.
Yeah.
And then I told Nick, I said, I don't want to start this episode late like we did last week where it's, really late at night. And he's like, we're not going to do that. And then we started the episode at 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is not what I wanted to do.
Make sure you do that again next week. Give yourself ample time to process everything.
Yeah.
Or as much as you can. Obviously, you got to work and stuff.
As soon as I get home next week. As soon as we're both home.
That's what I've been doing, too.
At 4 o'clock.
As soon as I get home from whatever I got to do. Sometimes I have to run a small errand on the way home.
Yeah, but you're
Wednesday.
At least able to watch it in the morning still.
Oh, yeah, totally. But, you don't have to wait all day. Or I don't. But you do, unfortunately. Okay, so last thing I want to mention again, did we mention last week how we kind of want to
cover
a series or something?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Forgot to throw it on the board, so I'll do that this week and see what people say.
We'll talk about this off, Mike.
Okay, but anyway, I want to throw it out there again just so people know. Debbie and I have thoroughly enjoyed doing this podcast together. Mm-hmm. We've gotten a lot of response, people talking back with us online, which I super enjoy. I like getting response. Numbers are good for what I'm, looking for, whatever. Mm-hmm. So I would like to be able to cover a miniseries in between seasons, or I don't know, a movie or two, something like that. Not continuously, not like every week we're going to be doing this still. I would like to take a break from this for a little while.
We should go back and watch The Stand.
The Stand would be a cool one to do. Like,
and then rip it apart.
Not a full series like this. Like, not 10 podcasts, but maybe like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or maybe like we cover over the course of 2 weeks and then piece it all together as one podcast, 1 2-hour, 3-hour podcast, and people can just watch it after they watch the movie or something like that. So that's kind of tentative plans. I would like to hear anybody's ideas on wacky stuff they want to see us cover. I'm leaning more towards like The Stand or It or something like that, which is like...
I have original It here.
Sweet. I was going to say I was going to have to buy it if you didn't.
No, we have the original.
But, yeah, I'm leaning more towards the wacky side. Just because that'll make it more interesting to cover. It's like this show is like, sometimes it's kind of out there.
Oh, yeah.
So, anyway, let's close this episode. See you next week for the season finale, everyone.
So sad.
So sad. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Green
Bye,
bean.
bye, bye.